greatest hero the world has ever known is about to kick his first butt. Now, after a lifetime of training...
Hey, who's he?
I don't know.
The Chosen One has returned.
If you truly are the Chosen One, then you must bear the sacred mark.
To deliver the people from the forces of darkness. And to check out the hotties.
Be not concerned of her shyness, for it will pass. There you go.
20th Century Fox invites you to feel the fury. Taste the passion.
You are the chosen one. One day, all will be revealed to you.
I'm sorry?
And witness the utter madness. Kung Pao. Enter the fist.
Para sua diversão, em breve, nas locadoras.
Archangel is down, and I am on the run.
Critics are calling it an adrenaline-fueled thriller. A white-knuckle film with non-stop rip-roaring action. Behind Enemy Lines has first-rate action and a lot of it. It's one great movie that's a ride worth taking. Behind Enemy Lines. Every man has...
Tonight, live from New York City, VH1 presents Celine Dion, Aretha Franklin, Gloria Estefan, Shania Twain, and Mariah Carey, together on Broadway for one night only. Divas Live, an honors concert for VH1 Save the Music. From New York's historic Beacon Theater, with special appearances by Jennifer Aniston, Patricia Arquette, Terry Hatcher, Carole King, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Susan Sarandon. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the star of the new 20th
Assista agora a mais um lançamento com a qualidade Vídeo 3.
The universe, the lifeblood of all things, the home of a billion stars, each with its place in the order of the heavens, and each governed by the infinite law of the cosmos. As the ever-expanding energy of the universe continues to grow in a sea of fusion and creation, the infinite depth of the cosmic reality embraces itself in the fabric of destiny. The awareness of mankind grows in accordance with the rule of cosmic law. Since the dawn of humanity, we have looked out towards the stars as if compelled by an unknown force, telling us, you are not alone. You are all part of the evolution of the universe, on your way to higher realms of enlightenment. The expanding universe, with its infinite complexities and compelling influences, is the kaleidoscope of man's dreams. With new attitudes and new points of view, our understanding is growing, bringing scientific influence towards new horizons. At last, we are beginning to grasp the meaning of the primeval commandment, "Know thyself," which is inscribed over the portal of Delphi. Today, we have a new model concept of science which proves that all natural systems, from minerals to man, inherit a collective memory of their kind. One of the great pioneers who achieved a breakthrough in this area is Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist whose remarkable discoveries shook the fundamentals of established science.
The entire basis for my work is the idea of the evolutionary universe. See, until 1966, most people thought of the universe as essentially static, most physicists. And the idea was that evolution occurs on Earth, in the biological and human realm, in a universe which is at best static, at worst actually running down, devolving rather than evolving. Since 1966, we've had the idea of an evolutionary cosmos, an evolutionary cosmology. And this changes everything, because now we see biological evolution in the context of cosmic evolution. And the idea of cosmic evolution gives us the idea that all of physics and chemistry, everything, is evolving. And this is what leads me to my main point, that if everything's evolving, then why shouldn't the laws of nature evolve too? Indeed, why shouldn't they be more like habits? This is the essential insight of my work on morphic resonance. And it depends entirely on this evolutionary insight into the whole of nature.
The awareness of our fundamental heritage is inherent in our being. The awakening of the wisdom of the whole is inexorably endorsed within the essence of our spirit. The influence from motivation to germination is the basis of our existence and is predictable in the course of our evolution. The pyramids reveal the wonders of our ancient past. They harness their proliferating energy from the cosmos that it may be utilized by another civilization in its many fields of endeavor. Our awareness of the origin of these citadels derives from past generations. It is inherent in the soul of civilized man to build such structures, reaching towards the source of unseen powers. The challenge of future accomplishment is the driving force behind human progress. From the horizon of the past, the traditions and memories of visiting cosmic teachers has remained engraved in cultural art. This tradition dates from the era when spacecraft visited Earth from distant worlds. Proof of the historical facts of continuing extraterrestrial visitations has been revealed by Eric van Däniken, a best-selling author who investigates the archaeological and ancient artifact connection.
We have been influenced by extraterrestrial beings for thousands of years and will continue to be so in the future. And everything in its own time, the time of the possible. You could say that when an apple is ripe, it falls from the tree a couple of days later. The same is true in global thinking. The extraterrestrials influence us today. They influence prominent people, who then think positively and in turn influence others. There is a constant flow of energy, of thoughts, of new ideas, from the outside to the inside, and from inside to outside.
The ancient Indians of Peru were a highly advanced civilization who lived thousands of years ago in the jungle of South America. Their traditions speak of visiting space man. At their reservations are the amazing Nazca lines, which are etched into the earth and which are acknowledged as being aircraft runways and landing sites. Artifacts of great age have been found which closely resemble aircraft of today. The sensational crop formations of England have generated great interest, and the question has to be asked if there is any connection with the etching in Peru.
Ich kenne die Hopi-Indianer sehr gut. Sie leben heute in Arizona. Aber ihre alte Geschichte.
I know the Hopi Indians very well. Today they live in Arizona. But their old traditions say that many, many thousands of years ago their home was in South America, and that at that time they were descended upon by extraterrestrial visitors called Kachinas. These Kachinas also saved the Hopi Indians when their continent threatened to sink. These heavenly beings, the Kachinas, were the teachers of the Hopi. And even today, the Hopi Indians make figures of the Kachinas for the younger generations, so that no one should forget the visit of their original teachers from outer space. And even today, the Hopi are convinced that one day the Kachinas will come again. In this connection, it's interesting that a short time ago I showed White Bear, one of the oldest members of the Hopi, pictures of the Maya cities Tikal and Palenque. He was beside himself with excitement and said, "We understand that. Our ancestors built that under the guidance of the Kachinas."
The great energy source of the cosmos can be extracted and focused to form a very potent electrical and magnetic power form. It is a power of great destructive potential, and the ability to control it can only be given to those of higher understanding and achievement. Such power sources were built into the Great Pyramids by another race thousands of years ago, when they needed recharging facilities for their spacecraft while on reconnaissance flights around the universe. The units were built within the protective framework of the pyramids to protect them from discovery. As the world focuses on the mystery of the Egyptian temples, our space probes have located similar strange pyramids on Mars.
We have the very mysterious structures on Mars, pyramids, and particularly the large humanoid face looking into the Martian sky. All the investigations on Mars with the Viking probes show quite clearly that Mars has been in the past different. The physical makeup points to an ecological system. And the pyramids, again, really make quite clear that they cannot be possibly natural structures. I really believe that they are artificial structures. The human or humanoid face on Mars shows that if there have been visitors in the past, a long time ago, then they were humanoid.
The readings of the early Bible told many stories of Earth being visited by heavenly teachers on blazing chariots who gave information of great wisdom. They told of how they had always been in the sky and would return one day. This is one of the prophecies of the Bible, which was taken from the word of the visitors. How did modern man go about interpreting these holy clues? The visionaries of the past perceived the structure of the cosmos and its purpose. The life spirit of the elements is a constantly changing mirror of charged perception and energy. The spiral of conscious awareness is the consequence of harmonizing with this harmonic vibration. Within the evolutionary circle of cosmic regeneration is the life force of progression, through which the universal memory of intuition is formed. Leonardo da Vinci was a man of great vision. He realized the significance of the hologram of man in relation to his place in the order of the universe. Many of the first astronomers studied the sky principally from an ideological standpoint. Galileo Galilei applied himself to analyzing the cosmos with a view to finding out just how it worked. Kepler believed in the law of equal equation, whereby all scientific experience could be solved by the use of mathematics. The real world is the mathematical harmony discoverable in all things. He also had visions involving space travel, and this already at the beginning of the 17th century. In a letter to Galilei, he wrote, "Let us create vessels and sails adjusted to the heavenly ether, and there will be plenty of people unafraid of the empty wastes. In the meantime, we shall prepare for the brave sky travelers maps of the celestial bodies. I shall do it for the moon, you, Galilei, for Jupiter." Isaac Newton spent many years studying alchemical research, cosmic intelligences, and the soul of the world. His law of universal gravitation involves a holistic vision. Every particle of matter attracts every other particle. Everything is interconnected, but in Newton's opinion, such a force could not arise from the particles themselves. They had no such attractive power. Rather, said Newton, gravitational force depends on the being of God. It is an expression of his will. This aspect of Newton's thought was soon forgotten, however. The hidden forces permeating the space of the universe were soon attributed to matter itself. They arose from material reality rather than from God. And when God was finally dissolved completely away from Newton's vision, what was left was a world machine in absolute mathematical space and time, containing inanimate forces and matter, and entirely governed by eternal mathematical laws. Like Kepler, Albert Einstein was strongly imbued with a sense of the mathematical rationality of the universe. He wrote, "The individual feels the futility of human desires and aims, and the sublimity and marvelous order which reveal themselves in both nature and in the world of thought. Individual existence impresses him as a kind of prison, and he wants to experience the universe as a single magnificent whole." What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe, and what a yearning to understand Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend years of solitary labor in disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Only one who has devoted his life to similar ends can have a vivid realization of what has inspired these men and given them the strength to remain true to their purpose in spite of countless failures. For 10,000 years, man has tried to equate with the enormity of the cosmos. The concept of an evolutionary universe which started with gods from the stars, spaceships and telescopes will carry us into a totally changed life. Chris Griscom is the founder of the World Light Institute and the School for Global Consciousness. She teaches the harmony of man in relation to his place in the universe and the higher levels of awareness of the mind as applied to the cosmic laws.
Everything is living. Everything within our perceptual fields and beyond our perceptual fields has the spark of life. The universe is just a further expression of what we can touch and smell and see. We are made of carbon atoms. The stars are made of carbon atoms. The earth is made of carbon atoms. We are all interpenetrating and moving within the same medium. When the consciousness is able to feel this, as a child does, for a child, a rock is living and speaks, or a bird, or a plant. And so the child has the opportunity to identify with the universe. We have lost that identification. It's necessary for us now to go beyond the contraction of our daily lives in order to understand the purpose of our existence. And the universe provides us with a wonderful backdrop to do that, a wonderful capacity to extend out beyond the limited small self and regain that sense of belonging with something bigger than our individual selves.
So we turned our faces towards the heavens in the hope of finding a deeper understanding of ourselves, to participate in the quest for universal knowledge, and to hold out our hands in the search for possible cosmic neighbors.
If we consider that most of the stars in the Milky Way are twice as old than our sun, 10,000 million years old, then obviously there may be highly advanced old civilizations which have developed interstellar travel. So my answer would be it is more than likely, not only possibly, but more than likely, that extraterrestrial visitors are traveling to other solar systems, other planetary systems. Thus, we really should expect extraterrestrial visitors in our solar system observing human civilization.
As fantastic as this may seem, photographs of unknown flying craft, known as UFOs, have been taken around the world, captivating the public's attention for decades. This photograph was taken in 1978 in Brazil. This was photographed in Switzerland in 1975. These two UFOs were also photographed in Switzerland in 1975. This was taken in 1971 in Austria. This one was seen in 1987 in Canada. This UFO was photographed in Germany in 1977. This was taken in Colombia in 1971. This photograph of a shiny silver object was taken in North Charleston, South Carolina in 1980. Yet another photograph from Switzerland taken in 1975. This UFO with a cloud-like vapor was taken in 1974 in Denmark. This UFO was sighted in 1977 in Uruguay. A UFO in Indonesia, photographed in 1974. These three luminous flying objects were photographed in Barcelona, Spain in 1978. Every year, increasing numbers of UFO photographs are being taken by witnesses from around the world, giving growing evidence of extraterrestrial visitors. In 1946, George Adamski, a professor of philosophy, using his cine camera, took the first moving pictures of alien spacecraft. This film shows the strange flight pattern of these machines. This picture shows three balls beneath the craft serving as condensers for static electricity. This film, also taken by Adamski, shows a telemeter disc, described as being a very small but highly technical reconnaissance craft. Adamski was an amateur astronomer who had a 6-inch telescope on the slopes of Mount Palomar. In 1946, he observed a huge cigar-shaped UFO and was astounded to see many smaller UFOs emerge from the mother craft. He was able to take a series of photographs of this amazing sight. After taking many photographs of these alien flying machines, an event took place which would change the course of Adamski's life. On November 20th, 1952, he had his first contact with a human-looking alien visitor. Adamski was walking in a desert canyon in California when he came face-to-face with an extraterrestrial standing beside a landed spacecraft. The alien told Adamski that the meeting was not by accident and that he had come to give a message. He warned of the danger we were creating by exploding nuclear weapons. He said that the human race had no idea of the very powerful and deadly long-term effects we were creating, which could not only destroy ourselves, but also our planet, and that the continued use of such weapons could eventually endanger our cosmic neighbors. Adamski was asked to spread this message. The alien visitor promised that he would return and meet Adamski at a later time. Adamski was later taken for flights into space, where deeper, more meaningful messages were given to help the human race to understand another point of view of our world. Adamski devoted his time to spreading the visitor's message and was later joined by a Danish Air Force Major, Hans Petersen.
Well, you see, after the contact in the desert, George had an inner feeling that this was not the end of it. On one of his flights, made more flights, but one particular he was taking on board a mothership, which is a very, very large ship who is taking all the other vehicles into our atmosphere. And in there, he met a lot of people, and he met an old man, so to speak, a wise man, who told him a lot of why they were here and what we did wrong here on Earth. And after these experiences, George wrote a book, Inside the Spaceships.
In this book, Adamski described in detail the very advanced technology used in the spaceships, including technical information on the magnetic and gravitational propulsion systems, which work on a power found throughout the universe. He also described a magnetic pole running through the center of the ship that was also a very powerful periscope, which could observe both above and below the craft with great magnification. Adamski's alien friends gave him a pendant to wear around his neck and was told it would increase his telepathic abilities and enable him to maintain contact with them. Another witness who was truly shattered by his experience when he saw and photographed a UFO was Dr. Daniel Fry. Dr. Fry was a rocket engineer and the head of a scientific team employed by the American government at the White Sands Missile Proving Grounds in New Mexico when he took these films and photographs. On July 4th, 1949, Dr. Fry was contacted by alien visitors for the first time. They informed him that mankind lives in danger of total self-destruction through means it had created itself, and that Earth technology was advancing faster than man's ability to control himself. He was told that peace was the automatic byproduct of understanding between man and race, also that the understanding of fellow human beings was the key to building a united world.
The most significant experience that I had is probably the finding out of the major purpose for this invasion, so to speak, was to keep this planet alive, that we're approaching an area of controversy which could result in the displacement of all humanity, because we had learned how to do that without learning how to get along with each other.
When those among you responsible for your scientific achievements realize the significance of the destructive forces you are creating, only then will you understand that you are destroying your living planet, which is responsible for your very existence.
We are here to advise, guide, and encourage you to turn your eyes towards the creation of a planet of peace and understanding, where your invention and universal ability coexist with the creative force of the cosmos. We are your brothers of the Galactic Federation, who wish only to have you by our side. We cannot join you until your thoughts turn from self-destruction to the eternal law of universal knowledge and understanding.
Dr. Fry later wrote a book called To Men of Earth, in which he told the story of his experiences and contacts with the space visitors. He continues to travel, giving lectures and spreading the word from his alien friends. Dr. Fry attracts a great deal of support from people in all walks of life.
We rushed outside, and there came a spaceship sailing, passing us, making a curve, going down south and coming in from the south, passing over our heads and disappearing to the north. And 1 hour later, it came back and passed in low altitude, and it passed the moon, which has come up meanwhile, so you could see it was an Adamski-type saucer. I've been so close to them. I have had the telemeter dish, the small flying saucers which are making reconnaissance within 75 meters, 2 of them. I have one being disintegrated on my terrace. I have seen flying saucers, the George Adamski type, within 200 meters in front of my car. I have seen 2 flying saucers land, both cases with my wife, so I had a witness.
The founder of the German UFO Society, Carl Veit, is also a publisher of UFO books. For decades, he has published books written by contactees. Many years ago, he had the foresight to realize the value of the information.
There were 12 of us sitting in the garden, and the pictures were shown by this television man. And I explained them again as well as I could. And in the middle of my explanation, the baby daughter, she was the youngest member of this family, called out, "Daddy, what is that?" and pointed up. We were all looking at the screen, and then we also looked, and there vertically above us, or nearly vertically, there was a wonderful large UFO, rather low. Of course, we were all amazed. We gazed up, we waved, and in a way gave thanks that they had come during the UFO lecture and wished to greet us, or to say, "Yes, we are here, the ones you're talking about."
Tony Dodd is a retired British police sergeant who had a close encounter with a UFO. Since that time, he has become the Director of Investigations for Quest International, Europe's largest UFO investigation organization.
I was driving a police patrol vehicle in a remote area in Yorkshire when I saw the most amazing disc-shaped flying machine. This machine was about 100 meters off the road, above the road. It was glowing white, bright white. It had colored lights rotating around the underside of it. It had a dome on the top with what appeared to be portholes. It was going at no more than 30 kilometers per hour. But the strange thing was that it was making no sound. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. This was no doubt a real UFO. I'm convinced of this. It did not resemble anything that we have which is flying around in the sky. It had an effect on my police car radio. It blanked out the transmissions with a very heavy static effect. The object moved away from us and disappeared into the distance and appeared to land in a forest on a hillside.
George once told me that they work in all countries, all over the world. And they live among us, they have jobs. One day, George met a couple in New York on Fifth Avenue. He was looking in a shop in the window, and a couple passed him with a little boy between them. And he got this strange feeling that they were space people. And he put a thought towards them. Are you space people? Then come back. They turned around and came back and said, your thought is correct.
Adamski was given insight into the purpose of his life by his extraterrestrial friends.
And in this sense, all these people who have come into contact with extraterrestrial beings are confronted with these wonderful facts, and they have also had an insight into their lives. Why they are here. That's what was also said to George Adamski, that he should, so to say, be a pioneer in the field of ufology, because in the development of the human race, we now face great, higher problems.
Our first face-to-face contact with a member of your race in modern times was a man called George Adamski. He was chosen because of his astronomical awareness and placid naivete, coupled with a cosmological awareness. During our contact, he was told many things which he was asked to pass on to mankind, and was forewarned of the ridicule he would be exposed to. He showed high integrity and learned quickly the significance of our intentions. He was the ideal subject for our first contact. He created a chain reaction of awareness which continues to spread at the present time. He was the first seed sown by us to open the eyes of your world.
The first thing that made me realize that there was definitely something else happening was as a result of the first sighting. After this, using my policeman's mind, I used to watch in the area where I'd seen this thing. And over a period of time, I saw many more of them. And it got to a fairly regular event. And I saw them at close range. I saw them doing aerobatics, almost on occasions as if they were doing them for me, on very remote hillsides. And then on one occasion, one came past, it flew over my head. And I flashed a light at it. And this thing turned around and came back. And as it got above my head, this was only about 25 feet above the ground. It had a long light on the front of it, a long elliptical shaped light. And as it got to my position, the light increased in intensity, went down, and then increased intensity and went down again, almost as if it was signaling me back. And then it turned and flew off again. I knew at this time this was an intelligently controlled machine who was acknowledging my signal. I was certain before this time that there were alien craft flying around. But this particular incident really convinced me of this.
So where are our alien visitors coming from? Or is it possible that they've been here all the time? If so, where? Science is turning its interest towards new areas of reality and dimensions previously unknown. With this new scientific approach, long sought-after answers to the mysteries of the universe are now being revealed. Working in this area of science is Thomas E. Bearden, presently focusing his research on gravitobiology, a new biophysics.
Much of this audience, a significant portion of it, has had at least unusual experiences in their life, with everything from contactee experiences to paranormal experiences to parapsychological experiences to you name it, religious experiences, mystical experiences, and so forth. A part of the audience, of course, is merely curious about those things and has not had maybe some kind of experiences of its own. The thing that you're dealing with when you have those experiences, I like to use the analogy of the 5 blind men and the elephant. We have been brainwashed and taught since our earliest childhood that reality is singular. It's brick-like. It's like a mechanical universe. It works like a clock. Wind it up and it goes a certain way. Certain laws apply and everything is absolutely mechanical and robotic. That is not true. It's as plastic as can be, and the Whittaker work shows that you can engineer it and make it what you will. You can make it a heaven or you can make it a hell. And so what we really live is in a universe that has many more dimensions. What we have in reality is really hyperdimensional. There are more dimensions than what we normally see when we look in a corner and we see length, width, and height. There are actually dimensions that are hidden that we cannot see, and modern physics is in the business of representing many of those dimensions for various theories.
Military and civil airline pilots from around the world have constantly reported having the most unusual experiences in the skies, including contact with UFOs. On September 19, 1979, a UFO followed a military aircraft over Germany. This is a close-up of the object. This B-52 Canberra bomber was flying over Edwards Air Force Base in California in 1954 when a UFO was seen near the aircraft. Here is a close-up of the UFO. Many pilots flying B-52 bombers reported seeing UFOs. This one was photographed at 12,000 feet in June 1966 over Utah by aircraft pilot Williams. An aircraft over Venezuela had a close encounter with a UFO. This photograph was taken from the plane. In June 1976, the British Airways Concorde was being filmed in flight when a small UFO appeared. After maneuvering around the plane in a manner that indicated intelligent control, the UFO flew off at great speed. This was witnessed by the whole crew. Here is a replay in slow motion. Of the hundreds of UFO sightings made by aircraft pilots every year, the most amazing one was filmed from a commercial airliner by passenger Gene Oldfield as the aircraft cruised at 9,000 feet over Stafford, England on April 2, 1966. The film clearly shows the ability of the craft to perform maneuvers and feats of acceleration far beyond our present comprehension. Here is the film again in slow motion. This photograph was taken on February 7, 1979 at Zurich Airport when a glowing UFO bathed in a bright light appeared in front of an aircraft. On April 14, 1977, a Swiss airline pilot had an encounter with a UFO. Hans-Georg Schmidt suddenly saw an object moving rapidly towards his aircraft. It stopped approximately 3 miles away, glowing intensely, and then shot off again. Both military and civil ground radar units who were tracking the object later informed the pilot that the UFO had moved at 5 times the speed of sound. At 9 p.m. on January 4, 1988, Captain Dowie Stahl noticed a light in the sky ahead of his position. The object appeared to descend and then started to dance from side to side. It then climbed back to its original position. Pilots who witness UFOs while in flight are required to complete an official but confidential report. This was one of the early films taken of a UFO. The dramatic movement of the object showed rapid, almost instantaneous changes of speed and direction, which sparked intense curiosity and confusion among the public and scientific community. No earthly aircraft of the time could perform like this. While filming from a helicopter for the U.S. Navy on April 15, 1966, Lee Hansen, a professional photographer, shot these pictures of a flying object at Catalina Island, California. The craft, which had no wings or tail fins, was 30 feet in diameter and moving at approximately 150 miles per hour. No signs of a propulsion system were visible. This film, shot by James Waters in Colorado on July 23, 1963, shows a UFO moving across the sky at tremendous speed, followed by a second one. This is the same film at 1/12th speed. An analysis showed that no earthly aircraft could possibly fly so fast. In late December 1978, a record number of UFO sightings were being reported by radar operators and pilots in the area of Wellington, New Zealand. Just before midnight on December 30th, 1978, Quentin Fogarty, a reporter, and a television team took off in an Argosy aircraft to fly to Christchurch. Shortly after takeoff, Fogarty was informed by ground radar that they were being followed by several UFOs. During the 50-minute flight, UFOs were seen and filmed by the crew. The UFOs were described as having a luminous base and a transparent top. The objects were performing incredible aerobatics. This movement was captured on a single frame of film.
We have been present in your skies for hundreds of Earth years, but because of camouflage devices, you have been unable to observe us. Your cosmic evolution has now developed and the time has arrived for you to ascertain the existence of other life in your universe, resulting in us making our presence known to you. Our choice of contacts has been governed by their spiritual ability to comprehend our manifestations without anxiety or aggression.
The movements of our vehicles in the air, which you find so strange, is due to the fact that we have overcome the force which you call inertia and can fly in any direction instantly without experiencing any form of pressure change. Our propulsion systems work on the principle of electromagnetism, where gravity is of no significance. The three spheres sometimes seen below our craft are our drive systems, but can be detached individually to function as surveillance probes. The magnetic pole within the axis of our craft has many functions. It contains periscopic lenses for high-magnitude observation and assists in the absorption of static power for recharging purposes.
Assista agora a mais um lançamento com a qualidade Vídeo 3.
seems to me quite clear that a humanoid civilization will very likely try to find other humanoid civilizations in the Milky Way, if we just take the Milky Way as our place for travel. I'm not talking about extragalactic civilization now. The possibility of finding humanoid civilizations would always be of interest. Just like our astronauts, if we send them away in the search for life, will very likely try to find life which is a kind which is similar. If an astronaut has a chance to visit a planet where there's plant life or insect life, or another planet where there's humanoid life, he very likely will travel to the planet where there is humanoid life. And so it should not surprise us that the extraterrestrial visitors are always described as being humanoid.
The following sequence of photographs and film was taken by the astronauts. While in space, they had many encounters with UFOs that are now being revealed for the first time after decades of secrecy. On the Gemini 4 spaceflight on June 3, 1966, astronaut James McDivitt took a photograph of this cylindrical object. On the mission of Gemini 7, astronaut Frank Borman reported seeing these two objects flying in formation. On the Mercury 1 mission on February 20, 1962, John Glenn took this picture of two glowing objects. On the Gemini 11 mission, September 13, 1966, Pete Conrad and Richard Gordon observed a cluster of UFOs alongside their craft. They described them as large and very bright. During the Apollo 11 mission in July 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin saw these two UFOs, which were in orbit around the moon. The astronauts filmed the extraordinary glowing objects from the Apollo 11 spacecraft and reported to Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, that the UFOs even accompanied them to the moon. Many astronauts made their own private films while on space missions. This film, shot by James McDivitt in a long sequence, shows the remarkable aerobatic ability of UFOs. The astronauts faced UFOs so regularly that they became part of their everyday life. Because of restrictions, however, they were unable to describe their encounters to the public. One of the first to break the silence is former astronaut Brian O'Leary, a professor of physics and an astronomer from Princeton University, who comes forward for the first time to speak of the reality of visitation from out of this world.
What I do know from my own experience and from scientific investigations and experiments is that UFO phenomena and a range of other events are part of our reality, as incredible as they may seem.
Jetzt war es dann endlich soweit. Der erste Mann war auf dem Mond gelandet.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
During their moonwalks, a giant glowing UFO hovered above their heads. While in orbit around the moon, a huge object remained in view for a considerable amount of time before it suddenly disappeared. This UFO was seen above the landing site. This cigar-shaped UFO was photographed from the orbiting space module.
Down to the pad. That may have been a small deal, but that's a long.
On this very first trip into the unknown, the astronauts repeatedly reported to Mission Control that they were being escorted by unidentified flying objects. After landing on the moon, the astronauts stated that the UFOs were still present in the distance, hovering near a large crater. They were well aware that they had been observed throughout their entire mission.
It's also like sundown again. Yeah, powder. I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. No, May's the month. May, that's right. May is the year of the month. When, much to my surprise, a pair of lovely eyes. Hello, Ryan. This is Houston. Hi there. We lost you for a while. Yeah, we sure did.
The momentous leap to the moon led to the dawning of the space age. Space travel opened up endless opportunities for mankind to explore new frontiers. NASA's plans are already well underway for colonies to be developed on other planets, beginning with Mars.
Space offers unlimited growth. You cannot force any living form to stop growing. People need to grow, and they need to have more elbow room and new frontiers. And the opening of space provides that. And so the moon, and particularly Mars, as a new living environment, will provide hope for future generations, many, many decades in the future, to continue to grow. If we don't do that, Earth remains closed, and we would have to stop growing totally, entirely. Otherwise, we would destroy ourselves and the environment. And I don't think that this proposition of stopping to grow will be accepted by any living form, including humans. People want to grow. People want to have children.
The compelling influence of our origins is the energy which fuels life itself. The purpose of our existence is to move ever closer to the source of creation by the expansion of our horizons and species, to explore the frontiers of infinity, which are our inheritance.
The other aspect of it is, in order to continue our internal growth, we need to do external steps. In my feeling, I've always been confident that for every step we take on the outside, we have to take also a step on the inside, deeper down into ourselves. There is no way for us to explore Mars or to explore the universe if at the same time we don't also explore ourselves and become more complex humans, more rounded, more holistic humans. It is not really a necessity. I think it'll just happen anyway. It's a law. It's a natural law that if we do any step out to Jupiter and to Mars, and if we send our space probes out, we will change, whether we want it or not. It's a change in consciousness, and we will start asking questions which we have never even thought about years before. Just seeing the Earth from space as an individual little ping-pong ball has already caused a revolution in the environmental area. The environmental people have put the Earth as photographed from space on their banner, as a symbol, as a mandala. So space and its overview effect, the view of Earth from space, has helped to initiate a revolution of Earth consciousness, of people becoming conscious of Earth as a vulnerable spaceship which they need to keep in repair and maintained.
Here now some astronauts' impressions of their first view of Earth from space.
Looking back at our beautiful planet, you're immediately struck by what a gorgeous place we've been given to live. It's an incredible, living, beautiful planet going through the big black void of space.
I realized that mankind needs height to know our Earth, to see what we cannot see close up. Not just to love her beauty, but also to ensure that we do not bring even the slightest harm to the natural world.
The first day or so, we all pointed to our countries. The third or the fourth day, we were pointing to our continents. By the fifth day, we were aware only of one Earth.
The Earth is like color music. You see the colors, and the music springs in your soul. Our planet is so vulnerable and needs to be taken care of.
Yet another astronaut said, "In this complete silence of space, questions from the deepest inside arise. Where is my place in all this? What do I mean when I say I?
Every child hungers to explore the universe because there's an unconscious recognition that the universe is our source and that we belong to something larger than the confines of our physical world and our immediate environment. Every being born looks up at the stars at night and wonders if there's something out there that can be contacted, that can help us to understand the mystery of life, even the purpose of our own existence.
Within the heart of this living miracle of creation, science has begun to detect the presence of other dimensions of existence, living in parallel worlds to our own. That means in the space our solar system occupies, other solar systems can exist also on a different vibration. Whatever happens in this world has an influence on the other worlds to a certain degree.
Your inability to imagine the concept of our technology restricts your understanding of intergalactic travel. Movement through time and space is a natural result of our scientific achievement. The existence of parallel worlds with one race living in the same space as another is not yet fully understood on Earth. Our craft move from dimension to dimension by altering our state of molecular vibration and merging with the new one. This action gives the impression that we suddenly appear or disappear from your sky. Speed is of no significance in space travel. All movement is achieved by molecular interchange.
When we come from other dimensions, we materialize and become visible to you. We sometimes do this to make mankind slowly aware that he is not alone. You see many of our smaller craft in the lower atmosphere, but these come from much larger motherships of many sizes which are stationed around the Earth.
Motherships very rarely enter the Earth's atmosphere, but on one rare occasion, this remarkable film was shot of such a ship flying at low level over Germany in 1980. The object was seen by other witnesses in a nearby village who reported seeing 3 smaller craft emerging from the larger one. They stated that the craft was at least 100 feet long. This film of a cigar-shaped mothership was taken in Rhode Island, America on June 3, 1967. The leaf effect motion of the ship is common with most sightings. Craft of this size and shape have been reported all over the world. This aerial photo was taken by Inaki Ozis while flying at 8,000 feet in February 1968. Probably the same cigar-shaped mothership was photographed in Texas 10 days later. Over the following few days, an object fitting a similar description was reported by various witnesses.
Life aboard our motherships is ruled by a mixture of self-discipline, love of each other, and the merging of all spirits into one. Every need is catered for in respect of rest, recreation, and meditation of the soul. Illness does not prevail, but analyzation and antidotal equipment is always ready in case of unexpected or unknown space microbes attacking the craft or our bodies.
Our food is comprised of a rotation of the many choices available on our own planet, but does not include the flesh of other life forms. We do occasionally take the fruit of certain organic trees and shrubs found on other planets, but only when they are known to be totally safe and pollution-free. Our water on the craft is produced by cosmic conversion. All byproducts are disposed of by the disintegration of the composite molecules. The psychological spirit of each of us is at one with the elements which surround us. And when we are at one with our universe, we are at peace.
My personal views on UFOs are that these are alien piloted vehicles. When I say alien, I mean alien to anything we know. That possibly they come from other worlds, but I think it's highly likely also that they come from other dimensions, other time spheres. And that there isn't one type of alien coming here. There are probably many of them, all from different areas. When people report these things, we get such a variety of things reported, so many shapes, so many forms, and this appears to cause the confusion because there is such a variety of these things. But really speaking, if these things are visiting us from a whole host of different areas, one would expect them to be different forms, different machines, and I think this personally is the answer to it.
Meanwhile, we scan the skies with optical and radio telescopes of great power, which penetrate the universe for 15 billion light years, watching, listening for signs of intelligent life. Large numbers of people on Earth wait and watch in the hope that one day they may be contacted or visited by visitors from space.
In Russia, a large crowd of people who had gathered to watch a famous singer being filmed saw more than they had bargained for when a UFO suddenly appeared above their heads. The camera crew quickly focused their camera on the object and recorded an aerial display that lasted several minutes. The crowd found this more intriguing than the singer. Even she eventually stopped singing to watch the UFO. Numerous UFOs are seen over Russia regularly. These balls of light are identical to those reported in Belgium and the rest of Europe in 1990, which attracted extensive attention on top military and civilian levels. In April 1990, this cigar-shaped UFO was filmed over Russia by an amateur. These flying objects are now acknowledged by the Russian military as being alien flying machines.
The nucleus, the authentic nucleus of the UFO phenomenon must be our research field, and that is certainly worthwhile. However skeptics may talk about the UFO phenomenon, whether they call people who have encountered psychopaths or even scientists who concern themselves with UFOs as cranks, we simply have to accept, if we inform ourselves, that there's a small percentage of absolute authentic cases which represent the UFO phenomenon. And we must continue to investigate this nucleus. It will be worthwhile.
When I first saw my UFO, I always quote my UFO now, you've got to bear in mind I was dealing with something like this with the clinical mind of a policeman. So my immediate reaction was, well, what makes a thing like this tick? How does it go? How can you get an enormous machine like this which doesn't make sound? Why does it look so beautiful? Why did I see it? Why was it there? There's so many whys. And I knew I had to find out answers to these things. It was very, very difficult. There was no easy way of finding an answer to something like this. But it seemed to me that things naturally came my way. I started to receive reports from people as it became known I was interested in this subject. And then I had so many other incidents following this of close encounters. It was quite amazing, really, because these things seemed to know where I was, even when I wasn't on the initial hillsides where I found them. I had occasions when I would be driving down a country road, then suddenly one of these things would be in the sky, flying alongside me very close. And it was almost a cat and mouse game. And I had nothing but no fear, never any fear, because there was never anything directed towards me which would indicate there was any hostility. And so I got a sort of affection for them. I had to keep thinking, what kind of technicians put something like this together? Because it was such an amazing thing. But I knew that this thing was not from here.
For the past 45 years, people from every country have reported seeing UFOs. The descriptions of these objects have been all too similar, despite the fact that the witnesses live thousands of miles apart. Witnesses include astronauts, pilots, scientists, and police, even presidents of the United States. Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan have spoken openly about their seeing UFOs. Since 1945, an estimated 5 million UFO sightings have been reported from across the world. Most sightings are of singular objects, although many are of 2 or 3. In some cases, large formations have been spotted. The greatest number of UFOs usually appear after 9 p.m. Although a large percentage of these sightings can be explained as natural phenomena, many cannot. Thousands of people are asking questions: what are these UFOs? Where do they come from? Why can't I see one? Why are they here? And more people want to communicate with the extraterrestrials, to learn more about them, get to know them, to understand.
And we must continue to investigate this nucleus. It will be worthwhile to take up communication with extraterrestrial intelligences. May one day be not only a rewarding element in our lives, but it may guarantee our survival.
Through the presence of UFOs and the messages received from them, our attention was drawn to the power that we had created and the fear which had grown out of our inability to control it.
There have been so many and increasingly frequent communications between ourselves and the extraterrestrials or civilizations from other dimensions, other galaxies, other planets. Most of those communications have had but one theme. We are here to help you. You are at a critical point in your evolution. If you abuse the laws of the cosmos by shattering the source of life, by shattering the atom, by directing its effect in a destructive way, you will be influencing the medium of all of the rest of the cosmic neighbors. And we cannot allow that to take place. I want to say that it is folly for humans to think, again, that some government or some species from anywhere else is going to save us from this dilemma, from this abuse of the life force energy. But we must seek communication there so that we can answer what has up until now been unanswerable for us. We cannot continue to purposefully create radioactive materials while we do not know how to de-manifest the excess materials. We can learn these answers by communicating with these extraterrestrials.
The evolution of your civilization has reached a critical stage. With the discovery of the matter reaction known as nuclear fission, you inherited a source of great destructive potential. Such power must be controlled by wisdom and foresight. Your inventive ability has advanced beyond your fundamental power of reason. This syndrome existed on certain other worlds, resulting in their destruction. This guidance is given to you in order that you may realize that energy is your friend, but must be kept under control. Otherwise, it will be your enemy.
There are people among you who are realizing new concepts of science. which would solve the Earth's problems. This technology is in harmony with nature, and therefore could only serve your needs in a positive way, never creating problems or causing harm. Each of you interacts with the cosmos. This realization will bring you to a higher level of global consciousness. It's in your power to make the Earth once more a peaceful, thriving planet, which all of us know is one of the most precious jewels of the universe.
Other civilizations are trying to convince us that technology has a more meaningful purpose when used for the good of all. We have reached a point when we need to ask ourselves whether we want to live in a world where the use of destructive technology is dictating the development of our Earth.
If we ask, what does the technology that goes on in the regular world today, what does it really try to do in science? Basically, it's trying to develop tools that are more and more powerful, they're smaller and smaller, they're cheaper and cheaper, and easier to build. If you extend that to the limit, where does that go? Where does that lead you? It leads you to this situation. The tools become so powerful that if they're used as weapons, they could destroy the whole Earth. They become so small that one person might hold one of these that would destroy the Earth in both hands. It'd be that small. They become cheap enough that maybe it cost only $3,000, and where a great number of citizens could readily afford that. Instead of buying a new car, they buy 3 or 4 of these. And it becomes simple enough that there are several 100,000 technicians properly trained, with a little change of mind and all, can in fact build such devices. We are beginning to approach that area, beginning to arrive at that area now. We can make real progress in resolving or lowering or decreasing man's inhumanity to his fellow man and the great hostility of weaponry and so forth in the world today. And unless we do that, we simply will not survive our own technology. The power of our tools will be turned against us by other people who are inhumane, and we will destroy each other.
Man decides for himself. The alien visitors have achieved a high understanding of the forces of nature and harmonize with the many variations of the 4 elements, their creative energy, and their higher dimensions. We are now beginning to realize that this vast knowledge of the cosmos must be the basis of our new science.
Life is abundant in the cosmos in the approach that I'm taking. For example, in quantum mechanics, the modern view of the vacuum is that inside what we normally think is emptiness, there is continually appearing a little particle, a little form, a little group of particles, and then these almost instantly disappear, so fast that they can't be independently caught and measured. But they're very real. We have experiments which show they really do exist that fashion. And they continually appear and disappear all of the time at an incredible rate. And any kind of form that you might wish to name appears every so often in that. Any kind of living being, any kind of a material molecule or an atom of gold or an automobile or anything you might name, a living being, a living animal, appears in there with a certain occurrence, a certain frequency. And so what we have then is these things called ghost forms. And if we really look at that, it's an area that most quantum physicists are very, very uncomfortable with. But nonetheless, it is real. And so if we look at that, we have to then speak of the density of reality, how dense a thing is in the overall plan. And when we say something is observable or real and physical, what we really mean is it's very, very dense compared to these ghost forms. But the ghost forms are real. And theoretically, if you add energy to that form so that they acquire more energy, you could materialize any form whatsoever. And we wind up by pointing out that in space-time, the time portion of it, thought and mind and spirit exist in time as well as the matter. And so there is at least one common dimension, if we treat that as a dimension, the time dimension. And the ghost forms that are even thought forms, therefore also can theoretically be materialized, gathered sufficient energy.
The energy of the cosmos is present in all things and is a force which surrounds our very existence. It is interwoven into the substance of life and retains the memory of all action which is dissipated into the universe. The magnetic field which is possessed by all substance interacts with this force and absorbs from it. Consequently, the unknown evolutionary changes taking place in one area can be linked to another distant area without any physical contact. The breakthrough made by Dr. Rupert Sheldrake with the discovery of the memory of nature breaks down the boundaries between man and the cosmos, proving that he is a part of an intricate web of energy and memory in which man is no longer imprisoned in his conventional concept of time.
Well, I think Sheldrake's research, for example, is very significant. He has simply labeled this the morphogenetic field, a field that generates a force gradually over a very long period of time. It accumulates an antidote for what's wrong with a species, for example, or any system, for example. Take the basic idea, the parts of any system, even though they were separated in space, if they're connected by quantum potential, they act together as if they were partially connected back to a same local system and not separated at all. And so I think it's very exciting in its implications for physics, because we're talking about here a physics which is an entire order of magnitude deeper and more fundamental than the present physics we have. And as long as you cannot escape from the morphogenetic field, it is a spur which will drive physicists to look for the actual mechanism that causes that to happen. And when they really get that, and get that accepted, and get that where they learn to work with it, they will have a new physics, a more fundamental physics that can be used to better everybody's life. That's the significance of Rupert Sheldrake's work.
We are linked to a consciousness of the universe through each action and each thought. This creates a force that governs our evolution beyond time and space.
Consciousness is unlimited. We have many, many levels of awareness or consciousness. For example, we can think, and that's one kind of consciousness. And we can feel emotionally, and that's another. Beyond that is a consciousness that extends out from our physical body. Our awareness, our spark of life that we carry throughout our lives does not end when the body ends, nor is it entrapped in the body. For example, when you sleep, your consciousness travels out from you. When you love, when you are connected to people in your family, or even perhaps people on the other side of the world, your consciousness extends out from the physical realm and perceives. We have a system in the brain. It's called the reticular activating system of the brain. And when we experience something new, it records that. It records all of the responses and reactions that our parents have to the outside world when we're children. We also record what happens to us in our dreams. When some level of our body, we call it the astral body, which is very similar to the physical one, but it's made up of the electromagnetic energies of the body, travels out from us into other dimensions, into other octaves, and brings back information. Often we call this telepathic information. We don't know why we know something, but in fact the brain is simply recording what is accessing out there in the invisible worlds. This is a powerful part of human potential. It belongs to each one of us. Every child has it. If you think about it, you will know that sometimes you feel and recognize things that come from beyond the limitation of your physical body. And this is your universal consciousness that travels with you even beyond the death of your human vehicle.
We are your brothers of space and time, who come extending the hand of friendship to greet our cosmic neighbors. We have watched from afar as you deal with the growing pains of your young race. We see you are moving to a higher level of understanding in accordance with cosmic law. You are on the threshold of joining us on the universal journey, and we wait patiently for this momentous step in your evolutionary progress.
For me, it would be the height of human separation to conclude that we are alone in this vast, vast galaxy, in these infinite universes that surround us. Time is an illusion. Time unfolds itself in an unending arc where the past and the future come and run headlong together into the present. There not only are sources of consciousness beyond our own, even on this planet, and certainly on other planets and other galaxies, some of which must be more advanced than ourselves. All of the great books that have spoken of our history and have even whispered of our prehistory have mentioned that constantly, if we look over the eons of time, there have been visitations from other beings who seeded our species, who have quickened our species so that we could understand who we are and how we are to live, and the importance of our thoughts and our manifestations, not only to ourselves in small groups, to the entire planet, but our planet as it is a part of a neighborhood in the universe. We have, for ever so long, been able to commune with those species. We have an opportunity now to actively call forth a relationship with them and embrace what they can offer us, what they can teach us, not only about the laws of matter and manifestation, invisible worlds as they move into visible worlds, understanding about radiation, our place in the universe, but we as well have something to offer them, because the human experience is unique. This is what we call the planet of the heart. We have an emotional body. We have a divine spiritual connection to each other that whispers about the source of life, the life force energy itself. Because of this unique energy that comes from us, this emotional, spiritual energy, we attract to this part of the galaxy many, many civilizations and unique species who are coming to extract what we have learned about the expression of the life force energy. We are only one of infinite species, expressions of life. And the more we extend our consciousness, the more we can embrace others. Even the more we can mutate or cause the evolution of our own species onto an octave that is more successful, not only in surviving on this small planet, but perhaps even in the very near future, surviving as guests of other planets, other galaxies.
Assista agora a mais um lançamento com a qualidade Vídeo 3.
I knew I had to find out answers to these things. It was very, very difficult. There was no easy way of finding an answer to something like this. But it seemed to me that things naturally came my way. I started to receive reports from people as it became known I was interested in this subject. I received reports in growing numbers until I was receiving reports in hundreds. And then the net spread, and it wasn't to a local area. And then it went to the whole of England, and then slowly but surely it spread until the world came in. And information was being fed from many, many directions. And many, many people helped. And as this information grew and grew, the fact that there were solid objects and other type of objects flying out there, there were other intelligences, became very, very real. There is a wealth of information, documented and otherwise now, of the real existence of these entities, aliens, whatever you wish to put the name on them. The problem is, in our society, there has been a very, very well orchestrated aura of ridicule imposed on society, so that people who were seeing these objects were afraid to report them for fear of ridicule. People in positions of responsibility saw these things, and many have spoken to me, but they always speak in hushed tones behind closed doors. And when you ask them why, they say, well, if I was to make this public what I had seen, I would lose my job. This is the syndrome which is been among society for many, many years. There are more people all the time coming forward. We're beginning to break this mold of ridicule, and the reports are coming from all manner of people. I've had them from doctors and pilots, from military personnel. You name it, I've had it from them. And it's like a snowball. It's gathering momentum, it's gathering size. And it will not be long before all the population realizes that these are out there. We are not the only people here. And when the realization of this comes to the front, then I feel that we will all be lifted on a higher level spiritually.
man is beginning to respect the universe and the laws of the cosmos. Therefore, he will learn a great deal faster.
Perhaps the most immediate cosmic law that we, in fact, discover through the presence of our physical vehicle is the law of permission. The law of permission discusses with us space. Everything from how close do we let someone we love or someone we don't love come to us? How much of our own power we have the right to use when that power interfaces with the needs or the expression of others? This is a conversation that is critical at this time on our planet. And we are attempting, the entire global family of humanity, to learn this lesson. Where do my rights begin and end in relationship to yours? Can I take what's yours? Of course, these cosmic laws of permission have been spoken of in all of the great books when we talk about the right to live together or to ever take another life. We must answer these questions. Of course, I have a fairly radical point of view on that, which is that ultimately there are no victims. Therefore, if you take a space on some level of consciousness, it is always given to you. It is given to you not because you have more value than the value of another, but perhaps so that you can learn the laws of cause and effect, what we call karma. That your actions cause reaction. The space that you take, if it infringes on another, creates an energy which will produce an effect. And that effect will be your teacher. These are things that we must begin to bring into our daily consciousness so that we become aware that what we do and what we think and even what we feel influences those around us. And we must begin to ask the permission of those around us. There is a great need for healing on this planet now. And yet, with our highest intention to contribute, perhaps that's settling a dispute between two nations or between two children. It may not be very different.
I think it's a very big help to recognize that we're interconnected with other people, that human life is interconnected with the life of the planet, and that what we do individually affects other people, not only through our words and our actions, but also our thoughts can directly influence other people by a kind of resonance.
Unless we begin to know how to break through this small self and to become the large self, which is at one with the universe out there. There isn't any longer the small self here and the universe out there, but there's this great sense of oneness. Then we can really begin to realize that whatever we do affects every other part of the universe. And so it's only when we realize this connectedness of all things, this way that if we do something to ourselves, it doesn't just affect ourselves, but everywhere and everyone, then what we do really matters. And so only then can we really begin to take responsibility for ourselves, others, and the universe as a whole.
The present orientation in the Western world is that we must struggle with nature and absolutely dominate and overcome her by brute force. In so doing, we do destruction to many of the natural processes. A much better approach is to how do we adapt the natural processes and use them to accomplish the purposes we need for good purposes for human beings. You do a lot more with nature by leading her gently by the hand than you do by trying to destroy her. Eventually, if you persist in trying to destroy nature, you will find that you yourself are natural and you are destroying yourself.
That would mean a science which has some motivation other than mere power and conquest, because science, as we know it, is formed on the metaphor of imperial conquest, conquering nature, enslaving nature, the domination of man.
The integration of your society with the forces of your natural environment is a necessary step to achieve perfect harmony. Within the natural forces surrounding your existence are the means to achieve any possible requirements, if channeled in the right direction. The traumas of famine, disease, and death as you understand them are not necessary. Abundant food and medical materials are within your reach, if you focus your efforts on positive growth and not negative aggression.
The awareness of your own potential in total harmony with the forces of creation would lift your technology and status into an ever-increasing spiral of realization. In practical terms, you would transform deserts into huge food-producing areas. Every element of your world could be made to serve you until peace and perfect happiness prevail.
What happens when we discover that we are a part of universal law is that almost without trying, our daily life begins to evolve, begins to change. Because if we address ourselves to those cosmic laws, our whole manner of living must, out of necessity, alter itself. We cannot become aware of cause and effect, of karma, and continue blindly to simply plunge through our lives without any awareness of the effect. The moment we begin to recognize that we are having an effect on our environment, something changes in us. Our hearts change. Our compassion changes. Every human being searches for some reflection that we have purpose, that we can make a difference in the world. Even if that's a difference within the family or in our jobs. The more feedback comes to us about how our action in the world or our feelings in the world affect that which is outside us, the more we're willing to step up and participate in the law of commitment. Commitment is a very powerful word, a word that is greeted with a great deal of disdain by most of us, because we try the word commitment on as if it were something that constricts us and confines us. It means we have to do it this way or we have to be that way. But when we learn that commitment is the pleasure of individual purpose, of our own source being expressed outside us, then those energies take on a new feeling to us, so that we can learn to commit, to say, I want to participate, I want to be visible. I realize that what I feel, that what I think, echoes out in the world. This is why in today's world it's so important to focus inside, to meditate, to sit in the center of the self and experience your own knowing. Because, for example, if you can find the point of peace inside your body, you are beginning to radiate out an echoing those around you, so that you greet each day as a day of challenge and adventure, with a little recognition inside yourself that you are up to the task, that you're strong enough to meet everything that comes toward you. Because ultimately, as you begin to seek and understand cosmic law, you will recognize that you have created that universe outside you for the purpose of your own evolution.
Out of that understanding, echoes and newly realized desires arise to provide oneself with a new quality of life. The awareness of oneself and the place one occupies in the universal law of exchange is the framework of cosmic expectation, the unselfish expression of love and creation. The cosmos is filled with all the energy we need. It's like walking along the beach picking up diamonds. Our present state of consciousness doesn't allow us to exclude ourselves from higher dimensions any longer.
And so again, we're dealing with an area which we have changed suddenly. Reality itself has become something quite different from what we've been used to. We have gone from the flatlander to enter the real universe, the more mature universe. And we're going to have to learn to deal with that. We're going to have to learn to deal with it just like a child has to learn to ride a bicycle by trial and error and learn to do that. We have a completely different kind of functioning that we have to learn to deal with, that's possible with the human being. We have the world's most marvelous scalar interferometry ever dreamed of inside our body already. We already possess the most marvelous tools that ever existed. Unfortunately, the output of that system is in the deep unconscious. We're not consciously aware of it. I even hesitate to say what could be done if we actively could control our own system. Everything that's called miracles or people walking through walls or whatever can conceivably be done were we able to control this kind of thing, because we would be gating and controlling cosmic energy, unlimited. We're not really prepared for that in our present situation, to consider that man or human beings become much more powerful human beings in this respect. We are not prepared to deal with the fact that we will have telepathy, ability to look directly in the mind and see what's there. A lot of business deals, for example, as we do them now, will suffer from that when one card sharp, so to speak, is trying to beat the other card sharp. In this case, it's a business card sharp. So a lot of the things that are continual conflict in our society, we're going to have to find different ways of dealing with, because now people are going to know that. They're going to know eventually what your real motives are. Now, this is different functioning from what every human being has normally had. In the process by which we acquire the ability to use this part of ourselves, we've always had it. It isn't mysterious and mystical. It really is a physical process. There are real mechanisms there. It's like everybody now has the ability to be a high wire walker on the tight wire. You normally can't do that. If you tried to do that, you'd fall off and be hurt. But with training and continuing to try and all, you can learn to do that. Everybody has that innate ability. And this is the same thing I'm saying here. We have certain abilities that everybody has innately that are not developed, but that can be developed. And so we're going to have to deal with a whole vast area of human functioning that we've never had to deal with openly before. That's another aspect of the future.
I think the main insight from my work is the sense that nature's alive, that we live in a living world, that human life is part of a larger system of life, and that our way of knowing about the larger living world can come to us directly through our own experience of life, as well as through intellectual theories. And this means that understanding and realizing once again that the world is alive in a way that I describe in more detail in my book, The Rebirth of Nature. This way of thinking enables us to appreciate a lot more about our own direct living experience, and it enables us to recognize that we know a lot through direct intuition. And this knowledge is valid and important kind of knowledge, not merely something subjective to be brushed aside in terms of more external and intellectual understanding. We have to come to see our intellect and our intuition, our direct experience as complementary ways of knowing about life, rather than one being dismissed as subjective and the other being elevated as supremely objective.
The answer to what is life or the purpose of our lives, for me, is very simple. The purpose of our lives is for the evolution of our soul. We think of our soul as an individual something. It isn't ultimately. It's a part of the universal spark of life, the divine energy of life. And as each of us come into body, we are here expanding the universe through our experience. Each experience that we have opens up the probable realities that are available within the universe. If we did not evolve, everything would stop. Everything would disappear. All energy is continually expanding, moving through a universal pulse. And that pulse does include life, death, contraction, expansion, light.
The evolvement of our race took the same course as yours many eons before the dawn of your civilization. We suffered feudal wars and destructive destabilization, but evolved through this as you will. We are by no means superior to you, only older in wisdom, because the evolution of our kind preceded yours. We are here with the hand of brotherly friendship as teachers, like you will be as your evolvement grows. Each one of your kind has the ability to grow in understanding and raise your cosmic consciousness. The answer lies within the fabric of us all. We hold great love for you and know that your direction is now turning towards the path of cosmic understanding.
We will give all the love to help you in accordance with cosmic law and the spirit of brotherly affection. But we can only advise. The future of your race must be determined by your own free will. Our view of you shows great hope and expectation, and we await with anticipation the day when you will aspire to the federation of cosmic brotherhood.
Just as when we're living, we each have this electromagnetic field of life force energy that radiates out from us. The planet itself has an auric field. The earth itself, the sky, have pulsating energy that are made up of the particles of our consciousness. Consciousness is not a mental concept. It is an energy which follows cosmic laws of motion and transmutation. If we could become aware of these auras, of our own auras, consciously clearing them, healing them, altering from them negative thought forms, then as my aura touches your aura, we would create a new possibility of relationship, and our auras together would create new relationships, so that the planetary aura could be cleansed. That is why the indigenous people around the earth continually speak of the epochs of existence, and how at this epoch we have reached perhaps the limit of darkness, And we must become conscious of these pulsations, of these cosmic laws, so that we can clear the planetary energy.
I think that the difficult part is the collective change in attitudes that we need, because one individual in London deciding they won't go to work on their car but instead go by public transport isn't going to solve the world global problems and the greenhouse effect, nor even one individual deciding they'll eat organic food instead of food produced by chemicals. What we need is a collective change as well, and that must involve a political dimension. And if it involves a political dimension, it must involve social, cultural, and I think also religious dimensions, because unless there's a spiritual aspect to this process of change, I don't think it'll be possible to sustain it or to motivate people sufficiently deeply.
In one of his books, Rupert Sheldrake writes, "We need to respond to our present ecological crisis practically by making appropriate social, political, economic, and technological changes. We need to look at the attitudes that have led to such devastation of the earth and to find a more harmonious way of living. And those of us who believe in the power of prayer need to pray for forgiveness and guidance. If a wiser and juster human order comes about, if a new harmony develops between humanity and the living world, this would indeed seem like an answer to prayer." As soon as we allow ourselves to think of the world as alive, we recognize that a part of us knew this all along. It is like emerging from winter into a new spring. We can begin to reconnect our mental life with our own direct, intuitive experiences of nature. And we can begin to develop a richer understanding of human nature, shaped by tradition and collective memory, linked to the earth and the heavens, related to all forms of life, and consciously open to the creative power expressed in all evolution. We are reborn into a living world.
The only way to be optimistic is to believe that these are the birth pangs of a new humanity that will become much more aware of its oneness and the way that whatever happens in any part of the planet affects every other part of the planet, and a new consciousness of solving problems by talking rather than by shooting. It's happening, and that's where I feel optimistic. And it's possible that if it weren't for a challenge like this, humanity wouldn't have come to this point of understanding that it has come to through the crisis. So I'm optimistic about that. And I'm optimistic because I find such beauty in people. I'm so moved sometimes by the beauty that I see coming through. I think that's the only hope, is the beauty that comes through, the splendor.
Philosophically speaking, if I address the question of what is the law of nature philosophically, I bring in the intent of the human being when he says law of nature in the first place. The human being is trying to say, when he says this is a law of nature, he's trying desperately to say that reality has now become fixed and obeys this, just like a brick-like world is very mechanical. It's an attempt to return to the notion of a mechanical universe, which has long since been destroyed. But you see, if you have a universe that doesn't have any such laws in it, or that you can modify the laws, and particularly you can engineer them, for example, using the Whittaker methodology, then reality doesn't become fixed. It becomes plastic. It becomes variable. And you can actually engineer it. And that is the greatest insecurity in the world. Suddenly there is no security. Where is my fortress? Where is the things that I can count on? Where are my brick-like security blankets? They're all gone. So what it really does when you meet it face to face, it forces the human being to consider, what does it mean after all to be alive? What does it mean, after all, to be immersed in physical existence? What do we mean by physical existence in the first place? And are we really just machines? Is that what we really are, what the conventional orthodox scientist tells us? And what we meet face to face is the answer: we are not. We are spirit.